Welcome back to English Classes Online. My name is Benjamin. Today's video is on Learn English Grammar, and our focus is on complex sentence structure. We want to examine the structure of a complex sentence, and this is one aspect of English grammar that gives you the ability to use a variety of sentences and express your ideas with greater clarity. So if you are new to this channel, kindly subscribe to the channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. You will also find a bell icon. Click on it, and that will enable you to receive notifications whenever new videos are uploaded on the channel. Without much ado, let's dive into the lesson. What is a complex sentence? That's the first thing we want to look at. A complex sentence is a sentence that contains a main clause and at least one subordinate clause. All right, that is a complex sentence. And if you look at it, you will discover that a complex sentence is made up of one main clause and one subordinate clause. Now let's look at this. Let's say this is main clause, and then let's move down here, and then this is subordinate clause. All right. Now let's say Jane didn't attend the meeting. All right. Well, this is a main clause because it makes a complete, it conveys complete meaning. You can put a full stop. In fact, a main clause equals a simple sentence. You can put a full stop, and that qualifies as a simple sentence. Jane didn't attend the meeting. We can easily put full stop. All right, but when we talk about the subordinate clause, it does not make a complete thought. Now, a subordinate clause needs to depend on the main clause. It needs the main clause to make complete meaning. For example, if we want to extend the meaning, we want to express an additional idea. You know, there is one idea in this simple sentence. Jane didn't attend the meeting. Now, to make it a complex sentence, we introduce an additional idea. And that could be an answer to a question such as why. If you say Jane didn't attend the meeting and someone asks you why, then you can give a reason: because she had a fever. All right, so you can see that this is a complex sentence. Jane didn't attend the meeting because she had a fever. This is a complex sentence. All right, so that is exactly what a complex sentence is all about. So let's now move further to look at types of clauses. Of course, in that example, I have shown you two major structural types of clauses, the main clause and the subordinate clause. By the way, you need to understand that a clause, all right, is a group of words having a subject and a verb and forms a sentence or part of a sentence. Now, talking about a clause, having a subject and a verb. Now, let's look at this. Messi plays football, all right? So in this case, you can see that we can analyze this sentence, all right? When we give the analysis, we break this into its natural components or parts, all right? This is the way to analyze a sentence. And so Messi is the subject, plays is the verb, all right? And then we have an additional element, football is the object, all right? So if you check the description section on this channel, you will discover that I have uploaded a video on elements of the sentence, subject, verb, object, complement, adjuncts, different, components of the sentence that perform different grammatical functions. So I am giving this illustration to give you a clearer view of our definition of a clause as a group of words having a subject and a verb and forming a sentence or part of a sentence. Now, for example, Messi plays football, forms a complete sentence, which we identify as a simple sentence. Again, if you check the description section, you will find a video I have uploaded on types of sentences. And in that video, you will find 6 different types of sentences: the simple sentence, the compound sentence, the complex sentence, the compound complex sentence, the multiple sentence, and the multiple complex sentence. You will see these 6 different types of sentences according to structure. And then you will see various examples. Of course, if you are interested in learning the grammar of the English language, especially if you are a second language user of English language, of course, it is very beneficial for every ESL user of the English language to learn the English grammar. All right, that is really one aspect of English learning that will help you tremendously. All right. So now, as regards the second part of this definition, I mean, forms a sentence or part of a sentence, you can see that there is a particular part, the subordinate clause cannot form a sentence, but it can form part of a sentence. Let me remind you of the previous example we gave. All right. Jane didn't attend the meeting. Now, this is a complete sentence because she had a fever. All right, so you can see 2 major types of clauses here. Let's analyze this by dividing it into the 2 clauses that make up this complex sentence, all right? So let's call the first clause MC, which stands for main clause, all right? This is MC, main clause. Then let's call this SC, which is subordinate clause. So you can see, now talking about a clause being a group of words that has a subject and a verb and forms a sentence or part of a sentence. Now, let me give you a clearer picture of what this is all about. Now, we have two clauses in this sentence. The first clause is a main clause. A main clause can form a sentence because we can easily, we can easily lift that sentence. Jane didn't attend the meeting, right? Jane didn't attend the meeting. And then we put a full stop here. This is a simple sentence, all right? Now, so this main clause forms a sentence. Now, this second one, which is because she had a fever, cannot form a sentence. If we remove this and we write, all right, because she had a fever, we can't, this doesn't make complete meaning. So that's exactly what we mean, all right? Okay, so now you can see exactly what a clause is about. And why are we talking about a clause, whereas our topic is a complex sentence? This is because we have defined a complex sentence as a sentence that contains one main clause and at least one subordinate clause. So you need to understand what a clause is. Then you also need to understand the two types of clauses according to structure. And talking about these two types of clauses, you can see there are two types of clauses according to structure, and they are the main clause and the subordinate clause. Of course, I've given you illustrations. Now, the main clause has a subject and a verb and makes complete meaning. Again, I have illustrated that, all right? I have illustrated that with that sentence. Jane didn't attend, all right, the meeting, okay? Jane didn't attend the meeting. So this is a main clause. It has a subject and it has a verb. And again, we analyze it. All right. Jane is the subject. The subject is the doer of the action. Didn't attend is the verb. All right. The meeting is the object. So you can see the two mandatory parts of the sentence are the subject and the verb. Others are optional. All right. You can have a sentence that has the SV structure, but you cannot find a sentence with the SO structure. If you omit the verb, then the sentence will make no complete meaning. You cannot say Jane, the meeting. Of course, if you omit didn't attend or attended, then it makes no sense at all. So the verb is the mandatory element, and the subject is also a major element, all right? Even when it is omitted, of course, it is implied. So that's the way it is, okay? Okay, so having said that, Let's now move ahead to the subordinate clause. The subordinate clause has a subject and a verb and cannot make complete meaning on its own. All right? And we illustrated this with the clause because she had a fever. All right? Now it has a subject and a verb, but certainly it doesn't have, it doesn't make complete meaning. The subject here is she, and the verb is had. So it has a subject, it has a verb, and here also it has an object, but it doesn't make complete meaning. It cannot stand on its own. All right? So now a subordinate clause begins with a subordinate conjunction, a relative pronoun or a relative verb, such as because, until. All right, so you can see that quite clearly here. All right, you can find because, until, since, after, and so on. You can see that we use because here, all right, to begin the clause, because she had a fever. All right. Now, if talking about a relative clause such as who, it can also begin a subordinate clause. For example, if you say, this is the woman who lost her husband in a plane crash. All right. So you can see here that the relative pronoun is who, and that begins this subordinate clause. Now, this is the woman, is the main clause. Who lost her husband in a plane crash is the subordinate clause, and it begins with a relative pronoun who, which is also why this type of subordinate clause is also called a relative clause. It is called a relative clause or an adjectival clause. If you browse through the description section on this channel, you will find a video on relative clauses and how to use them. All right. You will also find videos on various types of clauses. All right. So all these are there on the channel. If you are interested in having a clearer understanding, a more detailed explanation of these concepts, you will find them in the description below. All right, so now we have already seen there are two types of clauses according to structure, the main clause and the subordinate clause. We have also seen that the main clause is also called the independent clause. Independent means it can stand on its own. It has a subject and a verb and makes complete meaning on its own. For example, Mary didn't come to school today. Full stop. This makes complete meaning. All right? It makes complete meaning. Mary didn't come to school today. All right? So it makes complete meaning. All right. So then the subordinate clause is called a dependent clause because it cannot stand on its own. Something independent can stand on its own. Something dependent cannot stand on its own. A dependent clause, which is the subordinate clause, needs to, be joined to a main clause to express complete meaning. Although it has a subject and a verb, yet it cannot make complete meaning on its own. For example, because she had a fever. Now, forming a complex sentence. Let's look at this. Forming a complex sentence. We want to join the main clause and the subordinate clause, and that forms a complex sentence. Now, Mary didn't come to school today. That's the main clause. Because she had a fever. That's a subordinate clause. All right? So you can see how to form a complex sentence. You only need one main clause, and then you join it to one subordinate clause, and that gives you a complex sentence. Now, as I earlier mentioned, you will find a video on the 6 types of sentences according to structure. You will find it in the description section if you want to learn about different types of sentences in English. Of course, the classification of sentences can be done in 2 ways. Number 1, according to structure, and number 2, according to function. All right? So that's exactly the way it is. Now, analyzing the features of giving complex sentences. Now, let's look at how you can analyze the structure of the various sentences. Now, complex sentence number 1, Oji couldn't attend the meeting. We are using a similar structure so that you will have a clearer view. Now, you can see Oji couldn't attend the meeting. Now, let's analyze this into the 2 clauses that make up this complex sentence. Now, this first sentence, this first clause is called the main clause. And so we can label it MC, right? We can label it MC, which means main clause. Now, because he had a fever, now let's label this SC, which stands for subordinate clause. All right. So again, you can see the structure of a complex sentence. It contains a main clause and a subordinate clause. All right. Now let's look at the second complex sentence 2. Now, this is the book. That's the first clause here. This is the book. And so this is the main clause. All right, we call it MC. That's the first clause. This is the book which you asked me to buy for you. Now, which you asked me to buy for you is the subordinate clause. So we label it SC. SC stands for subordinate clause. All right. So that's exactly the way it is. This is the book, main clause, which you asked me to buy for you, subordinate clause. Now, put together, we have a complex sentence. This is the book which you asked me to buy for you. That's a complex sentence. Then you can look at the first complex sentence. Oji couldn't attend the meeting because he had a fever. All right. Now let's look at the third complex sentence 3. The class was very noisy. That's the main clause. Don't forget that the main clause makes complete meaning. I mean, it expresses a complete thought. All right. Well, we shouldn't have put a double slash here, so let me amend it. I hope you understand. Now, to analyze, at the beginning, we put 2 slashes. In the middle, we put 1. All right. Then in the final position, we put 2 slashes. That's the way to analyze a sentence. So this we call main clause, again, we use the label MC. We label it MC, which stands for main clause. Then the second one, when the English teacher came in, is the subordinate clause. And so we label it SC as usual. Again, you can see that we have two clauses here, one main clause and one subordinate clause. And then put together, we have the class was very noisy when the English teacher came in. All right. Now, one other thing I want us to do, let's take a look at this one by one, and then we attempt to do some further analysis. Now, complex sentence number one, you can see Oji couldn't attend the conference because he missed his flight. Now, the main clause is Oji couldn't attend the conference. The subordinate clause is because he missed his flight. Now, don't forget that this subordinate clause begins with the subordinating conjunction because. Because is a subordinating conjunction of reason. All right. Now, one other thing we could do here is we could change the sentence structure and it will still convey complete meaning. Now, let's attempt to do that. Because he missed his flight, you can see that we want to, when we begin with the subordinate clause, then, of course, we put a comma. Because he missed his flight, Oji couldn't attend the conference. All right, so you can see when we begin with the subordinate clause, again, you see that in speech, there is some phonological implication here. Because when we say, because he missed his flight, you can see that the sentence here, it has a different tone. The intonation pattern changes. Now, in the first one, Oji couldn't attend the conference because he missed his flight. All right. Now here, the intonation pattern, because he missed his flight, you see the rising tone, Oji couldn't attend the conference. All right. So that's the way it is. We can restructure the sentence, and even when we restructure the sentence, the only implication here is that the subordinate clause comes first, all right, and then the main clause comes in the final position. All right, so that's exactly the difference. Okay, that's the difference. Sorry about this. So you can see exactly. Let's attempt to reconstruct this so that we complete the explanation. Because he missed his flight, Oji couldn't attend the conference. Okay? And then looking at it, what we did, this is the subordinate clause. And then this second clause is the main clause. All right, that's exactly what I just want you to see. Here we have changed the word order. We have restructured the sentence, and then the subordinate clause comes first, and the main clause follows. Unlike the first one, where we had Oji couldn't attend the conference because he missed his flight. So in this one, we had the main clause coming first. All right, main clause coming first and subordinate clause following it. So you can change the structure, yet it conveys the same meaning. All right. Okay, so now you can see exactly what this is about. Now, complex sentence number 2, the same thing. This is the book which you asked me to buy for you. All right. This gives us a definite structure that is really not simple to reconstruct. We cannot begin a sentence with which you asked me to buy for you. We can't restructure this in that way. We can't say which you asked me to buy for you. This is the book. No. So we can't change this structure just as we did the other one. All we need to note here is that we have a main clause in the first place. This is the book, the main clause. All right. This is the main clause. This is the book, main clause. All right. Which you asked me to buy for you, subordinate clause. All right. And that's what we have here. Main clause, this is the book. Subordinate clause, which you asked me to buy for you. And here we have to understand that this subordinate clause begins with a relative pronoun. The relative pronoun here is which. All right. There are different types of relative pronouns. We have whom, we have which, we have that, we have whom, we have whose. All right. These are relative clauses, and each of it can begin a subordinate clause, which we can grammatically describe as a relative clause or an adjectival clause. All right. So let's look at the third complex sentence type. The third example of it. The class was very noisy. Now, this is the main clause, all right? The clause was very noisy. Always remember that the main clause, it can be identified by one main feature, that it can stand on its own. And another feature is that it can form a simple sentence, all right? Now, if we extract the class was very noisy, we can make it stand on its own as a simple sentence. The class was very noisy, all right? You are just reporting an event that happened in the past, all right? But when you join it to this subordinate clause, then you form a complex sentence. When the class teacher came in, this is the subordinate clause. So when we have the complete sentence, what we have is the class was very noisy when the English teacher came in. Again, the main clause is the class was very noisy. The subordinate clause, when the English teacher came in. Notice that this subordinate clause begins with what we call the relative adverb. The relative adverb here is when. All right, so that is exactly what it is. By now, I believe that you must have learned what a complex sentence means, and you must have also learned the various components, especially the two components of the complex sentence, the main clause and the subordinate clause. And we have also looked at the various parts that make up each clause, the subject, the verb, the object. And then we have also looked at the structure of the subordinate clause, and we find that some begin with subordinating conjunctions such as because, and some begin with a relative pronoun such as who and which, and some begin with a relative adverb such as when. All right, so then don't forget the main features that we have talked about in this video. And this is where we draw the curtain in today's video. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. If you did, like the video and share it with your friends and relations. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Don't forget to click on the bell icon as well, so that whenever a new video is uploaded on the channel, you will be instantly notified. All right, so don't forget to click on the bell icon as well, so that whenever a new video is uploaded on the channel, you'll be notified instantly. All right, if you have any question, any comments, any suggestion, please leave them in the comments section below. I want you to know that on this channel, we value all our viewers and subscribers very highly. And whenever you ask a question, we respond promptly. Whenever you make a suggestion, we give due consideration to it. All right? Many thanks for watching today's video. A big thank you to all of you out there for being part of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, kindly subscribe to this channel. Subscribe now as a way of giving us support. For notification about new videos, click on the bell icon. You will find the bell icon. Click on it so that whenever a new video is uploaded, you will be instantly notified. If you have actually enjoyed the video, like and share the video with your friends and relatives. This is very important. If you have any comments, leave your comments below. Any questions, any suggestions, we would gladly receive them and respond promptly and positively to them. See you in the next video. I look forward to always seeing you in the new video. Thank you and